Hi, I'm Jeremy Dirac at Kyiv Post. Today we're pleased to be joined by Franak Vyachorka. He's political advisor to Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya, the exiled president of Belarus. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What brings you to Kyiv?
So this weekend we have Belarusian Ukrainian conference, Astrozhski Forum, where we are gathering experts and politicians from Belarus and Ukraine to discuss the future of our countries and how to stop Russian aggression. But also I'm meeting here in Kyiv politicians, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, media, think tanks, just to organize some cooperation, some joint projects. We have to show and to help each other to stop aggression on one hand, but also to build ties between people, because Belarusians and Ukrainians basically are facing similar threats, threats that are coming from tyranny and that are coming from imperialistic Russia.
I see. How are things going with that in terms of building connections between Ukrainians and Belarusians?
I think now it's much better than in the beginning of full-scale invasion, because in 2022 there was perception that all Belarusians are like Lukashenko, and there was no differentiation for ordinary Ukrainian between the regime and between the people. But then I think Belarusians shown that they are different, that there is Lukashenko who seizes the power and serves Putin, not Belarusian people. And there are people of Belarus who are sabotaging Russian railways, military equipment. Hundreds of Belarusians joined the Ukrainian army, joined Kalinovsky regiment, volunteered for Ukraine, and now diaspora mobilizing support and providing humanitarian aid to Ukraine. So Belarusians have shown that they are different than Lukashenko, and this cooperation that we see right now, it's much, much better. There is mutual trust, there is mutual interest, and there are several lines of cooperation. There are informational projects we are conducting with Ukraine. There are cultural cooperation. We organize events. In Lviv, there is a Belarusian museum, for example, about Belarusian military volunteers. In Ukraine, there are many initiatives to promote this Belarusian-Ukrainian partnership. There are some political projects. We, as Belarusian and Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya, we advocate for more support for Ukraine. We believe that Ukraine must win, because this will give chance for Belarus too. And I think Ukrainian government, they understand the leadership that Ukraine must show in case of Belarus too. Ukraine now, it's much more than just the European country defending itself. It's just the frontliner in this fight against tyranny. And the Ukrainian support for Belarus, it's something very organic, natural, and needed for Ukraine too.
And there, as you mentioned, there's actually a Belarusian volunteer brigade. Do you know anything about what is happening with the Belarusian volunteer brigade right now?
They're fighting since 2014, when the war has started. Up to 80 people were killed already by Russians in the war. A few dozens, up to 60, were killed since full-scale invasion. Altogether, more than 1,500 were fighting. Right now, many are injured, of course. Many are not capable anymore to fight. But right now, we assume more than 500 people are on the front line. And many of them are in the Kalinovsky brigade, Kalinovsky regiment. Many Belarusians are in different other units. We are working with them. They are our military wing. Of course, it's very difficult for Belarusians to join, because there are many restrictions for Belarusians in Ukraine. If you have Belarusian passport, it's not easy for you just to come to Ukraine. And we are also working with Parliament of Ukraine, to simplify, to soften restrictions of Belarusians, because even for us it's difficult to recruit people to fight for Ukraine because of all these bureaucratic limitations. And I think Ukraine will only gain if it will soften conditions for Belarusians living here, volunteering here, and fighting for Ukraine as well.
Can you tell me a little bit about the work of the Belarusian government in exile? What are the main things that you are doing at the moment?
So to explain maybe to viewers, in 2020 Lukashenko lost elections, and we have the dual power in Belarus. So there is Belarus of Belarusians, of Belarusian people, Belarusian society and nation, led by Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya, and there is Belarus occupied, de facto occupied by Lukashenko and Kremlin. And this Belarus of Belarusians, democratic, free, it doesn't have state. We don't have territory. So we don't have real power. Power is mostly symbolic, but we have people, wonderful, energetic people who wants to see Belarus within European family of nations, friend to all. And I think our goal right now of the exiled government and democratic community, because we have people inside the country too, is to represent the interests of this real European democratic Belarus, to support Ukraine, to support our underground resistance. We have the cabinet, which is like government in exile with representatives working on different directions, social issues, political prisoners, economy, foreign relations, sanctions on Lukashenko. And there is coordination council, which is like proto-parliament. We held elections earlier this year. There are 8 parties, factions in this coordination council, and they represent different groups. There are civil society groups, there are more political groups. An idea of coordination council is to, on one hand, to develop vision of a new Belarus, but also to elaborate joint common strategy and solutions. And Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya, as the leader, as the head of entire movement, she is the spokesperson. She is the voice of all the movement, and she conducts negotiations with foreign leaders, traveling around the world, meeting diaspora, talking to Belarusians inside the country through Zoom mostly. And we want to show to nomenclatura inside Belarus, to officials, that there is alternative to Russian world. Because Lukashenko is trying to convince them that Russia is the only option for Belarus, and we say no, it's not the option. There is an option, the democratic path of development, and we show the positive alternative. This is what people need inside the country right now.
Can you comment a little bit about the state of affairs within Belarus at the moment for the opposition?
It's hard. It's like a terror. You know, before we were reading in books about Stalin times, when every morning the arrests took place, people were brought somewhere, and you didn't find any whereabouts of them for weeks. Something similar happens in Belarus right now. You can be detained for anything. Basically, protests are impossible to organize right now. It takes 5 minutes before KGB will take you to prison, jail, interrogate you. You will confess crimes you never committed. So our movement went mostly underground, but I couldn't say that the people gave up. We talked to them. There are constant Zoom calls, connection. People are coming sometimes to Lithuania or Poland to visit us. I think the energy, the willingness is still to change is still there, but space for activities is shrunk a lot. And internet is our main battlefield right now, because in internet with technologies we can do a lot. And we have cyber partisans who are hacking state institutions. There are volunteers gathering military information. There is a project Belarusian about Russian movement helping Ukraine, for example, to prevent possible attacks. We have some informational groups who are spreading the unbiased information. And this is how the movement looks like. And there are many, many NGOs working in education, culture, both inside the country and outside. But it's getting more and more difficult to pass the aid inside the country. It's something like Iron Curtain is growing up between Europe and between Belarus right now.
About how many Belarusian political prisoners are there at the moment?
So officially, human rights defenders know 1,400 names. We know that number is bigger because if you're a recognized political prisoner, you have very bad condition, very often kept in solitary confinement. And many relatives, they ask human rights defenders, please don't recognize us as political prisoners. So it gives people better condition in prison when they're anonymous. And unfortunately, this limits our opportunity to support them, because we don't know where are they, in which prison, what support they need. But this is how regime is trying to isolate. They try to seed the feeling of abandonment. What Lukashenko is doing in Belarus, Russia is doing right now on occupied territories, to seed frustration, apathy, procrastination. Nothing will change. And this repression are very sophisticated sometimes. They learned how to use internet, YouTube, history in browsers. Even they can hack iPhone to check all your history of browsing for last years, and people sometimes are detained for something, for some visit to some website 5 years ago. And that's enough for KGB to announce you the enemy of the state, and not to punish only you, but they punish entire family, even kids of enemies of the state. For example, they are not able to participate in school theater because you are from the family of enemy of the state, and that's drastic. That's horrible.
As I understand, there's recently been some good news with regard to one political prisoner.
The good news is that Maria is alive, and it's crazy how we came to that time when we are happy to know that someone is just someone was shown to her father, because for 2 years Maria or husband of Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya or others, they are kept incommunicado, and we don't know if they're alive, and many thought they are dead, and the regime is just hiding this from the public. But under international pressure, with international solidarity campaigns, the regime showed that Maria is alive, and we are very happy about that. But we still must demand the release. Not enough just to show that person is alive. You must release. These people are innocent. They're not criminals. And we must keep pressure on the regime. We must show solidarity. Lukashenko must know that for every crime, every repression, he will pay. For his complicity in Russian war against Ukraine, he will pay a price. He will be brought to account, because this impunity, it fuels the repression. It emboldens Lukashenko and Putin. And unfortunately, international mechanisms and organizations that exist right now, they are not able, as we see, to bring to account neither Putin or Lukashenko.
As I understand, Lukashenko is planning to have a presidential election in January. Do you know why he might be planning it then instead of in the summertime?
First, let's not use word election, because it's confusing, because people in democratic country, they think that election is something where you can choose the leadership, change something. In Belarus, it's more ritual, like in Soviet time. Lukashenko just reappoints himself. We call it in Belarusian без выборы, so no election. And this procedure will be like military operation for the regime. They don't want the repetition of 2020. Because Lukashenko made mistake, he registered Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya as the candidate, and people voted for her. He lost completely, and now he allowed only few people from his fan club to be the candidates, and now these people, they withdraw their candidacies in favor of Lukashenko. So very possible that to the end of election, there will be only one Lukashenko in the ballot, and he will write himself 90%. It will be very silent, very sterile campaign with no competition. He's doing this primarily for himself. It's like psychotherapy for him, just to treat this trauma from 2020 when he was beaten by Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya. And the second, to say that, let's turn the page. 5 years passed, let's turn the page. He moved election to winter because it's winter time, cold, impossible to organize protests. And also, I think he wants to do it before any peace talks on Ukraine, because he wants to be part of the peace talks. He wants to be he wants to be the president again, and he wants to quickly make it before any deals are made, so he can be part of this. We must not allow this to happen. We must not allow to legitimize Lukashenko. He's a criminal who seized the power. Let's not call him president, and let's make sure he will be brought to account alongside Putin.
Speaking of elections, President Donald Trump was recently re-elected. How do you think that this is going to impact Belarus's future?
From what we see, people who are appointed right now, many of them are supporters for Belarus and for Ukraine, and they will not allow, I hope, Putin to prevail. That will be a big failure of democracy and big failure of the United States if Moscow wins. So I see, from what I see right now, there is no any drama here. I think President Trump, when he will be inaugurated, he will understand. He will understand why it's important to support Ukraine and make sure that Ukraine will win. Of course, there are different voices. There are voices in the United States politics who say that, oh, let's stop support for Ukraine, let's divide Ukraine, and let's have peace by any cost. But I don't think these voices will prevail. We must make sure, we must educate, we must go there, speak to Americans, explain the importance of Ukraine's fight, Belarusian fight for democracy. Now it's very unclear what will be the policy immediately, but let's hope for the best. It's up to Americans to choose, their leaders, of course, but it's our work to explain their leaders why it's important to do ABC.
What's the size of the Belarusian diaspora right now?
So altogether we have up to 3 million Belarusians, so Belarusian origin people in exile or in diaspora. But since 2020, at least 500,000 left, mostly Poland, Lithuania, other European countries. Of course, not all of them are active, but this is a very great potential and resource for our activities. And now when we are traveling with Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya to different capitals, there are many Belarusians everywhere. They organize rallies, campaigns of solidarity. They cooperate with Ukrainians a lot and do joint actions as well. It's our power, and I think that this diaspora will play a very important role during the transition and after the transition. We will invite them to come back to Belarus, to invest in Belarus, to build their organizations, activities in Belarus, and to bring more Europe to Belarus, but also more Belarus to Europe and to the West.
And are you meeting with some key figures within the Ukrainian government while you're visiting Kyiv?
There are many meetings with key figures. Not all meetings are public because my visit is mostly working visit, to develop plans, strategy, what we do. But I already had very important meetings yesterday in Ukrainian MFA. There are some changes in Ministry of Foreign Affairs right now, and it's very important that we are on the same page.
I guess my last question would just be, what are your plans for the future?
To fight until the victory. We don't have much choice. I am convicted terrorist in Belarus, 20 years in prison, same as Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya and thousands of other people. So we have only choice to abolish, to dismantle this regime and to release our people. We cannot just stop, give up. We just must fight. We don't know how long it takes. We don't know how the changes will happen. There are many scenarios, but we just must keep fighting. Same as Ukrainians must keep fighting for their land, country, and the future, and Belarusians. And until Belarus is free, democratic, European, I will not stop. We will not stop, and I'm sure that the world will be with us on this path.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.